Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Kate Brim is back, sharing her story of what's happened to her since we saw her last. It's uplifting and a portrait of how to not give up. Please don't forget that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. To save 40% off of your entire order at CozyEarth.com, all you have to do is use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. That's JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% at CozyEarth.com. If you're living with type 1 diabetes, the After Dark collection from the Juicebox Podcast is the only place to hear the stories that no one else talks about. From drugs to depression, self-harm, trauma, addiction, and so much more. Go to juiceboxpodcast.com, up in the menu, and click on After Dark. There you'll see a full list of all of the After Dark episodes. If you're looking for community around type 1 diabetes, check out the Juicebox Podcast private Facebook group, Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes. But everybody is welcome. Type 1, Type 2, gestational, loved ones, it doesn't matter to me. If you're impacted by diabetes and you're looking for support, comfort, or community, check out Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes on Facebook. US Med is sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast, and we've been getting our diabetes supplies from US Med for years. You can as well. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. Use the link or the number, get your free benefits check, and get started today with US Med. Today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter. This is the meter that my daughter has on her person right now. It is incredibly accurate and waiting for you at contournext.com/juicebox.
Hi, my name's Kate Brim. I have been a type 1 diabetic since 2021. I was a pretty late diagnosis, and a lot has happened between now and then, and even before then.
Kate, you were on episode 819, January 2nd, 2023.
Yes.
And you're back. What made you want to come back?
You know, a lot has happened since then. I've been to the Paralympic Games. I had some pretty crazy things happen in lead up to the games and stuff. And, when I was first on with you back in 2023, I for sure was still so new to the diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And little did I know there was going to be so much more learning and discovery and challenge and triumph and stuff. No, it's been an absolute whirlwind of the last couple of years.
So if people want to get because we really dug through it in your first episode, but if they want to go back to check, I think it's incredibly interesting. You were very open, but you're a quadriplegic. Do I have that right?
Yep. Yeah.
So we discussed a lot about how you live your life, get through your days, stuff like that. If you really want to know more about that, 819 is the place to go, because I don't feel like we're going to get too far into that this time. So let's just give people a high level overview though. You're an athlete. Tell people what you do.
Yeah, so I'll give a very dumbed down intro to myself. December of 2017, I underwent a pretty routine surgery for a herniated disc that ended up leaving me a quadriplegic. So I was living a very stereotypical life. I was at university, going to school for construction management, was super proud of myself, thought I had my life set, career was figured out. I knew what I was going to do the rest of my life. And then this injury happened, and it completely flipped my life upside down. I had to find a new path of life, which was very hard the first couple of years, just rediscovering myself and, what does my abilities look like? What am I capable of? And thankfully, I was sent to an amazing rehab hospital whose whole mission was getting people back to doing the things they love, whether that be the community or through sport. And for me, it ended up being through sport, doing cycling, and hand cycling and wheelchair rugby. Yeah, I became very in love with hand cycling and wheelchair rugby, hand cycling in particular, because it was the one thing that I felt like I got into the bike, and in many ways, I felt normal. I could go out on the road and just go super fast and have the wind going through me, feel good, feel powerful, like I'm capable of stuff, and was doing group rides and stuff with others who are in very similar situations. And it was kind of the intro and just the beginning of rediscovering myself. And so, yeah, I fell in love with it. Eventually, a few years into hand cycling, I finally decided to take up racing and did my first race. Absolutely fell in love with it, hired a coach, and went to my first paracycling specific race, which qualified me for the final World Cup and World Championships. Everything happened very quickly. I went from, okay, this is a race where I'm going to figure out what hard looks like, to now you're going to go to one of the biggest stages in the world and race at the international level. And it was absolutely incredible. A very quick start to an amazing, amazing journey. And so, yeah, I went to that first World Cup and World Championships, ended up getting gold in all the races that I did, which was it's
Amazing.
unheard of. And it was absolutely huge. And then after that, I moved out to Colorado Springs to the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center. Have just been fully taking on what being an elite level athlete takes.
How long have you been at that piece of it now?
So I've been out here at the training center about 2.5 years now.
Wow. Getting ready for
the Paralympic Games. Yeah.
When is that, is my question.
So it just happened this past September.
Wow.
It was in Paris, France.
Nice.
Yeah. So I moved out to Colorado Springs. And then shortly after moving out to Colorado Springs, as many know, there are anti-doping rules within elite level sport, and we have to follow under what's called the WADA guidelines and stuff. Going into racing, I had thought that all my ducks were in a row and all the paperwork that was needed, I thought it was all there. It happened to not be there, so I got put into the testing pool on the U.S. side, and they come to my door, come and drug test me. I disclose all the medications that I'm taking, one of them, was Humalog, and they come back to me a month or so later and say, hey, we see you declared use of Humalog. You do not have a therapeutic use exemption. And I was very shocked. I didn't even know what to say. And they had said, okay, we can apply for what's called a retroactive TUE in this situation. All should be good. Give a letter of explanation, make sure all the medical documentation's there, and we should be good. So I do exactly that. Write my statement, just explaining, hey, I thought all the ducks were in a row, and I really don't know what happened.
Yeah.
And they granted me a retroactive TUE. I raced the whole next year for them to then reverse their decision of the retroactive TUE.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. At this point, I'm in Europe at our final World Cup when I get this notification that they have reversed the decision of the TUE. And I am just shattered to pieces because I know the consequences of this and I know the severity. Mind you, we were little less than 2 years out from the games. And fast forward, they disclosed to me what the consequences are going to be and how we're going to have to go about this. I had two options. I could appeal it, but appealing could take up to 4 years to do, or I could serve a 1-year backdated sanction from when it was initially granted.
Can I ask a question here on this one? So obviously you have type 1 diabetes. So
Yeah.
The problem isn't that you don't require insulin. It's that you didn't have the exemption for the requirement of insulin.
Correct.
That was
Yes.
it. And how were you supposed to know that?
I still have wonderance to this day because, like I said, I went into this thinking I had all my paperwork. And I did that whole first year of racing, letting
okay.
everyone know, hey, I'm type 1 diabetic. This is what needs to be done. If this happens, especially around low blood sugars when racing and stuff, they can be very, very severe. I was very open, very public to every single person I came across on the international stage and within my team on US Paracycling around my diabetes and the precautions that we need to take. So I thought all the ducks were in a row, and they very clearly were not. And because of the time frame we were looking at, I just had to bite the bullet and take the sanction, knowing, and it was very hard for me to swallow because I took that sanction, was stripped of all the points that I had earned that previous year, and not allowed to compete for the next 6 months.
Did you lose any of your medals or your wins or anything like that?
I lost all my points. Yep, exactly. So all the earnings that I had made, I lost them. I looked at this, I was very fortunate in that we were able to keep me afloat for the time being that I could not race. But the thing that really hurt me was I looked at this as, look, this is not someone who is trying to go out and dope up and get some benefit. There was some logistical errors and stuff that happened.
Right.
Mistakes happen. And I was very fortunate here in the US, we were able to keep me afloat. But for some other countries and some other people, this could literally mean the end of them ever competing.
Afloat meaning that you have to make money somehow while you're not racing.
Yeah. Yep. Thankfully I was still able to have a roof over my head and, health insurance and stuff, because in a lot of situations that would all be stripped. Because that is the one thing is my health insurance is dependent on my performance. If I'm not on national team, I don't have health insurance.
Yeah.
And so, I was very fortunate to be able to still at least have health insurance and a roof over my head.
How did you work that out? Who stepped up for you?
The USOPC.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you can't say, I understand, but is this targeted? Like, was somebody coming for you? Because what a weird thing, like insulin for a type 1.
Yeah. No, it's exactly. There's been, lots of doubt around that. And like I said, it shattered me in so many ways that we have such a fraud system that they're going to pick a bone over a logistical error for someone who is using a medication to keep them alive.
Yeah.
But then we have people within our system who you can see a violation for using performance-enhancing drug. It'd be the same violation, the same violation, but their penalty, every single one is different. Yeah. One you'll see as 3 months. One you'll see as just a little slap on the wrist warning. One you'll see as a year. One you'll see as 4 years, all for the same violation. And so there's just this lack of consistency and this picking and choosing. And how do we go about, these violations and stuff?
You got screwed for winning too much, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. You think so?
That's what it felt like at times.
That's interesting. Do you have any, is there any proof that happened, or is it just a feeling? It's just a thing it's hard to get rid of?
It's just a feeling, and it's, one of those things in the moment, because, I wanted to make the Paralympic Games, I had to bite the bullet and now live with this label on me of, okay, I had to serve a sanction. And, I'm very fortunate in that, everyone I've come across, both on the international stage, UCI, USOPC, everyone that I have talked to, and even USADA, our anti-doping agency here, has been, this is absolutely insane and just completely ludicrous.
Does insulin have a performance benefit? Why can't somebody, why is it on some list somewhere? What does it do?
I haven't completely looked into it, but there's some talk about it being enhancing in track and field and weightlifting. And I just look at it and I'm like, no, never in a million years would I ever see this. It's a drug that if you take and your body doesn't need, you're going to bottom your blood sugar out. It's absolutely mind-blowing to me. And, from day one of me being diagnosed, I was a very unique case in that, my life didn't stop. I kept riding my bike and I went into the deep end as far as figuring out management, saw some really scary highs, saw some really scary lows. I, from day one, have fully understood the dangers of insulin, even when you have good management. Yeah, absolutely ludicrous. It's very sad. But yeah, so I served that sanction.
So can I tell you, like, what I'm getting here is that a non-diabetic athlete can misuse insulin as a performance-enhancing drug to increase glycogen storage and improve endurance. However, this is dangerous because without diabetes, additional insulin can cause severe hypoglycemia, coma, death. That's the whole bit of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's in your system. And so it's on a list somewhere because at some point somebody did this and cheated. And they're like, okay, well, we'll put this on the exemption list. But without a plan for what do we do? Well, I guess the plan is you have to get your exemption. Far too often, we accept the blood glucose meter that someone hands to us. The doctor reaches into a drawer and goes, here, take this one. Is that the one you want? Is it accurate? You have no way of knowing. But if you want accuracy and you want to be confident in the blood glucose readings that you're getting from your meter, you want the Contour NextGen. It's incredibly easy to get the same meter that Arden uses. Just go to contournext.com/juicebox. That's all you have to do. The Contour NextGen is easy to use and highly accurate. It features a smart light that provides a simple understanding of your blood glucose levels. And of course, second chance sampling technology that can help you to save money with fewer wasted strips. contournext.com/juicebox. I have always disliked ordering diabetes supplies. I'm guessing you have as well. It hasn't been a problem for us for the last few years, though, because we began using US Med. You can too. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514 to get your free benefits check. US Med has served over 1 million people living with diabetes since 1996. They carry everything you need, from CGMs to insulin pumps and diabetes testing supplies and more. I'm talking about all the good ones, all your favorites. Libre 3, Dexcom G7, and pumps like Omnipod 5, Omnipod DASH, Tandem, and most recently, the iLet pump from Beta Bionics. The stuff you're looking for, they have it at US Med. 888-721-1514 or go to usmed.com/juicebox to get started now. Use my link to support the podcast. That's usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514.
Exactly. Yep. You have to have a TUE on file.
And now that all that's happened, and I'm assuming you put it on file correctly now. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. Now it's on file, and every 4 years you have to reapply, which is also another absolutely ludicrous thing. I'm like, it's type 1 diabetes, the pancreas checked out. I ain't miraculously getting cured.
If it goes away, we'll all know. Don't worry.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to point out here for people that doping with insulin for performance reasons is insanely risky. And please don't even look into it or do it. I mean, I'm looking here. I've asked our little friend online, and he's telling me, or she, I guess it doesn't matter, telling me about it. Suppressing cortisol, faster post-workout recovery, increased glycogen storage for endurance, enhanced muscle growth and recovery. How about that? I'm so sorry. That sucks. Especially because you got off to such a nice start. You were doing so well,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did you find the management of type 1 while you were competing? You see people online talking about exercise and type 1 all the time, and, how hard some people find it. So, how did you find it to be?
At first, it was very hard. I really struggled with it. There was times where I would be riding and I'm like, man, why is my blood sugar just stuck here in the 300s, even despite me, increasing my basal rates and stuff. And, it was figuring out a fine balance of okay, because when I'm on the bike, I'm taking in carbs while I am biking to reduce the effects of post-ride, essentially crash or, glycogen burnout. You want to keep the carbs coming in. Mm-hmm. And so figuring out how to be able to take carbs in while on the bike and also managing the blood sugar is a huge challenge. It's something, I struggled with greatly at first. And at first I was like, oh no, I'm burning calories, so I should need less insulin. And for me, a lot of the times it actually is, I need more insulin. I have to increase my basal rate while I'm taking in these carbs. Now, this is something that, as we all know, it's very different for everyone as far as management when it comes to activity, and not activity and stuff. And for me, even it ebbs and flows and stuff. But it was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of, comparing my CGM data to real life data, sitting on the trainer and testing my blood sugar several times throughout the ride manually and stuff to see what is happening, figuring out what's happening when I'm doing efforts and stuff and how I need to react to it. I feel like for the most part, fairly dialed in. My first probably 2.5 years, there were times where I had some really scary lows and I saw the number and I was like, holy crap, this is not good. And also, I do not feel my low blood sugars. I've been damn near close to single digits and still fully conscious and just looking at the numbers like, this is not good.
Yeah, right. Before we move forward, I'm going to ask you a question. I don't want you to be shocked by it, but I'm going to ask it because I think people are listening and it might be incumbent upon me to ask. Did you ever use insulin to cheat?
No.
Okay. I just wanted to put that out there on the record. That's all. Because, you're explaining what happened to you, but there's somebody's hearing it going, you know what I mean? Like, so I just want to, if you're comfortable saying that, I just wanted to ask you. That's all. I appreciate it. It's just such a situation, honestly.
No, it really was because when I first accepted that sanction, I, for many days, I was just angry over the situation and had a lot of resent and just frustration towards diabetes and stuff because I was sitting over there like, look, I'm going in and day out, busting my butt to have remotely good management and be able to ride my bike and live a fulfilling life and live a healthy, safe life with this diagnosis and with my spinal cord injury and stuff. And now here I am being punished for using the drug that's keeping me alive is essentially how it was looked at for me. And it was really, really, really hard bullet to bite. But, like I said, thankfully I had amazing support to get me through it. And coming back to racing, it felt really, really good. And I was happy to be able to come back to racing. It was definitely hard, and it still is very hard at times. It crosses my mind a lot of I just want to see change around this type of situation where logistical errors happen. People make mistakes all the time as far as paperwork or forgetting to do something. All of us do that. Mm-hmm. Every single one of us do that.
Were you mistreated based on how they treat other people who also try but get it wrong, trying to do the right thing? Were you hit more harshly than other people who have been in that situation, or do you not know?
It feels like I was hit more harshly, especially because, I did go down that rabbit hole of pulling up the published sanctions and stuff. And I'm looking at some of these violations and I'm just like, what in the world? This is a little slap to the wrist for a true violation of using a substance that someone shouldn't use. And then I'm over here, with the medication that I need to keep me alive.
How much time did you actually have to serve? Because some of it was time served already, right?
Yep. Yeah, it was a backdated 1-year sanction, and I had to serve an additional 6 months with no racing. And so...
Did it put you behind, athletically or in competition?
No, it did points-wise because, like I said, all my points were stripped. So when I came back to racing, all my competitors had a 1.5 years worth of points into the quad. And when I say quad, so each Paralympic Games, there's typically 4 years where people are earning points to get slots to make the Paralympic Games. So my competitors had about 1.5 years worth of points, whereas when I started, I had 0 points. Yeah. So there was a lot of pressure when it came to that, as far as knowing, hey, I'm starting from ground zero and way behind everyone else. So it was a lot of having to work really, really hard and be very diligent on my training and stuff and racing and really, really just being on top of, performance management. When the sanction happened, I still continued to train. I was more so taking those 6 months. I went a bit looser on the structure as far as training. I was not very strict as far as, making sure to get intervals in. I took that time to okay, look, the sanction sucks, but go back to square one of why I ride the bike. I love the bike and everything it's provided me, the independence that it's shown me, what it's shown me I'm able to do, with my disability and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I turned to. And it was very, very helpful. And I saw a lot of growth just naturally happen doing that. And so, yeah, that was definitely what got me through.
I was wondering because you hadn't been doing it that long, but you did have great success and you called it freeing, So I didn't imagine you just walk away from it, but it had to be difficult to find something that was helping you that you were good at, et cetera, and then have it taken from you. And then to keep up the momentum to get through the 6 months, I was wondering how that was.
Yeah. Yeah. It was solely just turning back to riding the bike like I did those first couple of years before I started riding, which was riding because I love riding. And that's been like my biggest message within racing on the big stage is great, but for me, it's not the medals and the glory and the podium and stuff. It's, like I said, it's the message that it's brought to me and the message that I've been able to bring to others as far as showing like what is truly possible, even despite really challenging circumstances.
Yeah.
That's been the reason I ride and the reason I race and why I, continue to race even despite all the challenges I've had.
Yeah, your situation is so specific. Are those accomplishments something that you want to share with the world, or is it just something you need to get through?
I have never been a big one for like gloating my success. Every single race I go into, I've always gone on it with like a learner's cap. Like I still feel like it's day one so many times, and every single race I've done, we're going on 3 years of racing under my belt. I still feel like I'm going into the race saying, okay, what can I take away from this race and learn to better improve myself for next time and strategy and stuff. And there was a lot of that, especially this last year leading into the Paralympic Games. This last year was the most important year of the quad as far as making the Paralympic Games. Mm-hmm. And it was very stressful, but it was also very, very fulfilling and just incredible, like everything that I learned throughout. I told myself leading up to the games, you've got the performance, you've got the drive, you have all the training under your belt. Right now it's staying consistent, staying on top of training, but most of all, staying healthy. I did that and got through our World Cup season, did amazing, was loving where I was seeing my performance. The one thing that I was chasing, so at the Paralympic level, the UCI level, we all have classifications based upon our disability. So for the hand bikes, it goes H1 through H5. H1 being the most disabled and H5 being the least disabled.
Okay.
I'm an H2 athlete. At the UCI level, we all race our own individual classifications. I'm racing other H2s. H3s are racing the H3s. Mm-hmm. H4s are racing the H4s. But at the Paralympic level, there is only a certain amount of medals that can be dispensed amongst all the sports. And so what ends up happening is categories get combined. So for me, I was racing against H2, H3, and H4. When people like look at it, you're thinking, well, how is that even remotely fair, racing against people who have a lot more ability than you? Like I had that thought and I had that frustration definitely, but it was just my driver to work that much harder. I looked up to the H3 and the H4 girls as the girls that I needed to chase. And I started working towards that. And, when it came to our road races, we have 2 big events, the time trial and the road race. The time trial is a race against the clock. We all have our own start time. And whoever has the fastest time at the end is the winner. And it goes down from there as far as times. Whereas the road race, think of it like a marathon. Mm-hmm. We all start at the same time. Whoever crosses the finish line first is the winner. Time trial is the race of strength, whereas the road race is the race of strategy. I was looking at the H3 and H4 girls' times being like, okay, I want to work towards this and I want to do all that I can to get as close to those girls as I possibly can. Right. At the Paralympic level, our time trial, we had what was called a factor. Think of it like a golf handicapped card. Mm-hmm. So the lower the classification, the higher the factor percentage you got. And so we were going based off of that to kind of look at my training and stuff and the goals to chase. And like I said, I was just put my head down, did the training, worked as hard as possible. And the 3 World Cups, I was getting closer and closer to those girls. The road races, we pushed for me to start with the H3 and H4 girls because typically they stagger the starts. And I was able to, keep up with the girls, and I was loving seeing where things were going. It felt absolutely amazing. And I left that final World Cup feeling really, really strong and really, really confident in, what I was going to be able to do, if I make the Paralympic Games. Mind you, I left that the World Cup season, still not even knowing if I was going to make the Paralympic Games just because of how our point system worked. It was absolutely crazy how the points were dispensed, and very stressful. So the World Cup season is over. Now we have the very final event on the U.S. side, which is our Paralympic Trials Open event that was held in Loma Linda, California. That was the last event to get ready for before they announced the team. The weeks leading up to that, I was training. Everything was going great. It was about 2 weeks before we were supposed to be going to the event that I discovered my bike that was barely a year old. The whole back end of it, the carbon fiber was cracked. I was very stressed in the moment because I was like, we have 2 weeks and the whole back end of my bike is cracked, making it not race legal. So I was calling around all of Colorado as far as places that could potentially repair it, and nobody wanted to touch it because they were afraid that it was essentially where the crack was going to impact the structure of the bike. It was essentially, if this cracks anymore, you're going to break the spine of the bike and it's going to crumble underneath you. So nobody wanted to touch it and have the liability of that.
Kate, replacing it is how much for the whole bike?
$4,000.
Okay.
So I last minute find a prosthetics company who does a very quick, just on the spot job. He epoxies the whole end of it. And we got it so that the draft bar would stay in, which is the bar that protects the back wheels. So in case someone hits you, they're not hitting you, they're hitting this bar.
Mm-hmm.
We got that in place. It's very shoddily epoxied together. I'm like, okay, the bike is at least temporarily fixed. If I make the team, I'm going to have to figure out a permanent repair as far as this. And so get ready to go. Let our director know and our mechanic know, hey, this is the repair job that we got. And then I'm let know your bike could potentially not pass inspection come race day. Be prepared for that. Mind you, I'm hearing this news as I'm on the plane to Loma Linda, California with my mom. And, she's very excited for the trials, very anxious. We're all, okay, this is the final event. This is the last chance to get the points needed in order to make the team. And I get that call, and I'm just sitting there on the plane reminiscing over the fact, holy crap, I have a bike that could not be race legal. I may not get to start. And we all had to do that race in order to even be considered for the team, regardless of how many points you have. We land, my mom and I happen to not be sitting next to each other. I kind of stay silent at first, and I'm just trying to be as calm as I can. Just all I can do is show up race day, and whatever happens, happens. Right. I let my mom know of the situation, and it kind of just really set in then the severity of the situation of wow, this is actually a really big deal. Again, she and I both agree it's out of our control at this point. We got the repair that we could get. I just have to show up race day and be ready. Mm-hmm. So to say I was nervous was a huge understatement. Yeah. Performance and numbers, that was all out the window. Me, it was, am I going to be able to even race or not? And so time trial day is there. I show up to the start line. The bike inspection starts. And it's the most nerve-wracking moment I had in my life. Typically, bike inspection is very fast. They do a couple measurements to make sure that we're within the specs and you're on. It's done within 15 seconds. Mm-hmm. They start banging around on my giraffe bar and stuff, saying it's too close to the wheels, the height's wrong and stuff. And then they let me know, hey, we're going to let you race today, but in order for you to continue racing, a better repair job needs to be done. This is not safe. So I get into that start pen knowing, okay, I'm going to be let race, but I have a bike that's not race legal. I tell myself, okay, it's out of my control. All I can do right now is just get the race done, and we'll take it from there. Mm-hmm. So the race starts. I get it done. I complete the race. It goes very well. We finish. After that, they do the podiums and all the awards and stuff. And then is the dreaded, everyone has to wait the whole next day to receive the call on whether or not they made the team or not made the team. So my mom and I and her friend, we go out to lunch. We're just trying to, stay calm in the situation, just enjoy the time that we're having in California, find some nice restaurants. And I get the call from Ian, our director, and he lets me know, hey, congratulations, Kate, you made the Paralympic team. Gives me some logistical stuff as far as like what to expect over the next couple of days. And I just froze. I couldn't even express excitement because I was so stressed in the moment. And I just went straight to business mode and I said,
I need a bike.
No, that's literally what I said.
Yeah, damn right you did.
Yeah, I said, okay, I'm very excited, but my bike is not race legal. What do we do? We have less than a month and a half to figure out a race legal bike. And so, we go immediately to business mode. He's like, okay, I'm going to contact Carbon Bike, the maker of my bike, and we're going to get this figured out.
Can I ask a question? Do you wear any devices like an Omnipod or a Libre or a Dexcom or an iLet or any of that stuff?
So I'm on the Tandem T-Slim X2.
Okay. They haven't talked about maybe throwing you $10,000 a year to sponsor your bike or something like that?
Yeah, no, so my one big sponsorship is Novo Nordisk, actually.
Okay.
So they've been a huge support as far as just like helping me with my diabetes management, just helping me with my mission of, showing people what's possible and stuff. Absolutely.
Are you allowed to have two sponsors?
Yeah, right?
Do you want me to introduce you to somebody?
No, it was absolutely insane. So like I said, Ian contacts Carbon Bike. They get back to us and initially tell us, okay, this is what it's going to cost for a new frame. They originally told me they wanted me to pay the full price, which was close to $8,000. And I said,
it's $4,000 to replace it.
That's the original price was $8,000. And I said, look, this is my situation. This bike is not even a year old, has never seen damage, has been taken care of like miraculously.
Yeah, I didn't run into a wall or anything.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. The bike should not be cracked in barely a year's worth of use.
Is there a warranty or something?
Well, so that's what we initially had tried going for, was like, hey, a warranty route, but it didn't happen. So we had to dump $4,000 on a new frame. Originally, they had told us, so my bike is very customized to my disability. To shift the gear system, I shift with two blip buttons that sit right behind my ear that are attached to the frame of the bike. And then I brake with my elbow. So it's a very unique system. It's not something that you can just go to a run-of-the-mill bike shop and fix.
Right.
They initially tell us, hey, this is when we can get you to the frame by, which was like a couple days before we were supposed to be leaving for Majorca, our training camp. And I just looked at Ian and Steve. I was like, no, we need the bike sooner than that. We have to completely move all the components over to a new frame. And so thankfully they got it to us quicker. We got everything figured out. I have a new frame. All is good. And then I end up getting sick.
Kate, listen to me. Have you been cursed by a witch? Like, what's happening? The quadriplegic thing should have been it. Like, the universe should have went like, all right, you know what? She got her whole load right there in the one thing. We don't have to do anything else. Like, no kidding. Does anything go right? I'm not being funny. Like, have you had a moment where you're like, oh, that worked out?
Yeah, it was 2 days after Loma Linda. Not even 2 days, actually. Got back from Loma Linda, had the whole stress of the bike and stuff, and we were getting that figured out. I rode the first day that I got back. Noticed my heart rate was a little higher, but I was like, it's just stress. Getting back to altitude, not going to sweat it. Still felt fine riding on the bike, easy. It didn't feel terrible. And then about 2:00 in the morning, I woke up with a really high fever and the worst pain in my life ever. And it was just that light switch where something is seriously wrong. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's code critical. You need help. And so I end up going to the hospital. At first, they tell me, oh, it's just a bad UTI. We're going to keep you a couple nights, do some IV antibiotics, and you should be good. Well, it ended up being 2 weeks later that I got out of the hospital because I ended up going to my kidneys. So here I am, just having finished the trials and get this serious infection. I lost a shit ton of weight, got down to 97 pounds, being almost 6 foot tall, and had been stuck in a bed, unable to do anything for myself for nearly 2 weeks. And now I have to, be ready to race in a matter of a few weeks.
Are UTIs a common quad problem?
Within spinal cord injuries, they can be. Now, the thing that was very shocking for me is I fortunately have not had many UTIs at all. I did when I was first diagnosed with the spinal cord injury and stuff. Mm-hmm. I had issues with it, but it was just figuring out a regimen that worked for me. Okay. And then I didn't have UTIs for a super long time. Okay. Up until this recent one. Ended up in the hospital for two weeks. It affected so much. It was more than just my kidneys. It completely destroyed my gut. I ended up being on a feeding tube and stuff to try to get food into me because I was just throwing up constantly and couldn't keep anything down. Was sent to rehab for a couple days and then discharged. My body just got completely depleted from this infection, and now I have to go be ready to race on the biggest stage in the world. It turned into me just having to essentially trust that I have spent the last 2.5 years working my butt off and training, and I was sick for 2 weeks, but it doesn't mean that I am completely destroyed. And I didn't want to count myself out. I said, all I can do is the best that I can do. And that was the mentality I went into it. We went to our Mallorca camp. I rode very well. It felt good to be getting back on the bike. It was definitely rough the first couple of days. The one thing that I was still dealing with and still am to this day was GI issues as far as what I couldn't eat and stuff. I was having a lot of just digestion issues and things not.
Was that after the antibiotics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It started when the infection happened in the hospital and has just persisted. That was a really big challenge, was getting fuel in me and stuff and refiguring out just the whole eating aspect. And so, training camp happened, felt good. We're now in the Paralympic Village in Paris, and it's setting in holy cow, I'm here on the biggest stage in the world. And, it's going to be go time in a matter of a few days.
You're not your best self at that point.
No, I'm definitely not. Right. But like I said, all I could keep reminding myself was, look, all you can do is the best that you can do. And I had to just go back to the roots of there's something that we try to use a lot within racing, which is relative perceived effort, which is just when you're riding, listening to your body as far as how you're feeling. And that's exactly what I did come that race day. It was very challenging, the days leading up to it. There wasn't, for me, I felt like I did not have the true, village experience of mingling with others and meeting a lot of people. It was lots of days in sports med and really keeping training controlled and checking in all the time and just making sure I'm feeling all right and things are going okay. And then, race day is here and I'm now on the biggest stage in the world and I'm in that start pen. And, very similar to Loma Linda, I said, I have to just put everything behind me, all the stress, all the worries, all the concerns, and I just have to go out there and give it my all. The time trial is a unique race, and when we're racing, we get a headset and we have what's called a follow car, which is essentially a coach who is following behind you, letting you know, hey, yep, you're doing good effort-wise. This is your time. This is how far you are from the person behind you or in front of you. They're able to like let you know all that information. And that was one of the biggest helpers that time in getting me through that race, was just having that voice of like, you're doing awesome, keep pushing, you're doing great. And just like that one time hearing those words was never like more beneficial. Yeah, so I did that race and I was like, okay, I did everything I could. You know, the numbers were lower than they typically had been, but I still was able to go out there and do an amazing performance, and I crossed the finish line. And the unique thing about the time trial is when you cross the finish line, you typically have to wait for everyone else to finish before you know your result. Cross the finish line, say, okay, I did as good as I could. And then it probably wasn't even a minute later, my director, who was also in my earpiece, comes running out of the car and lets me know, Kate, you did it. You got first place. You're a Paralympic gold medalist.
Oh my God.
And I just froze like in the moment to think everything that had just happened over that last month, between the bike falling apart, having to get a new bike, ending up in the hospital for 2 weeks. I did it. I got Paralympic gold by 9 seconds, and it just felt so surreal. I just froze in the moment. I was just so proud of myself for like pushing through everything that had been thrown at me. And it was just that huge reminder of like, through the tough battles, we can accomplish so freaking much, so freaking much, if you just like believe in yourself and you trust in the support that you have and lean on those that are helping you and stuff. That was exactly what happened that race.
Kate, what's the secret though? What is it about your experiences that allows you to stop and say, I'm just not going to think about all those other things?
You know, that's a good question.
Everything you've said, I don't know that it's not common sense. It's the doing it that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and so there's so many people listening and they're like, yeah, I was upset. Like, I was upset this morning, Kate, because the company that cleans my gutters missed a part of it. And I was like, what? Now I got to call them. And like, and you're out there like, oh, my bike broke. And then I got a UTI. And by the way, my legs, you know, they don't really do a whole lot. And like, this is happening and that's happening. And, you know, and I got kicked out over here and I had to sit for 6 months. And then I get into the chute and I'm like, okay, I'll leave that all behind me and I'll race this race.
Yeah.
As a metaphor for life and day-to-day activity and, you know, hardships, and how come some people can get in that chute and it just eats them alive and they can't race. And some people get in and just start with a fresh slate. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to figure out where you get that clean slate from.
I think for me, especially this last year, it's been the support that I've had. You know, the team that's been around me continuing to tell me, like, between my coach and all the USOPC staff, from sports medicine to sports physiology, strength and conditioning, like, people believing in me, and just that reassurance of like, you are capable of doing this. Immediately after, that was like one of the first things that came out of my mouth is, it would not have been doable had it not been for the team behind me. You know, cycling so often in the public light is viewed as an individual sport. It's the work that athlete puts in, how much they're doing on the bike, what they're eating. But at the same time, I looked at my situation and I said that, yeah, there's definitely the self-performance and self-drive portion of it, but it is also that team behind me that help me be able to do that and push my limits and find the strength and stuff to like get me through that race. Like I explained, you know, having our director in my ear, just reassuring me like, you're doing amazing, keep going, you've got this far left. And next thing you know, I crossed the finish line and I've done it. It's definitely the team behind the team.
Were you this person before your spinal cord injury? Or do you think this cascade of problems would have hit that Kate? Would you have just been like everybody else and been like, "It sucks and I'm getting screwed all over the place and I give up"?
No, I definitely was not that way before. I was a lot less confident in life. I was very much so. I keep my feet planted on the ground, didn't really try new things, but my injury happened. And the one thing it taught me is like, we just have so much to be grateful for, and we take so much for granted. Getting outside of my comfort zone and, pressing the limits and doing things that make me uncomfortable is just taught me so much, and just continued to, fuel that fire as far as like pressing the limits and just showing myself and allowing me to be able to show others even what is truly, truly capable in life.
So you had to lose something to gain that? Or do you think you could have found it through a different like I'm trying to find out, look, I'm not saying, you know what I mean? Like your spinal cord injury was like lucky or anything like that. But I'm saying, did you have to go through so much to give yourself that perspective? Do you think that you gained 2 lifetimes worth of perspective in one injury? Or like, how do you feel like you made the leap?
I think it was me getting quite frankly, knocked on my ass that showed me that perspective. And, it's one of those things I have asked. I've like, why does it take some of us having absolutely detrimental things happen to us for us to learn, what is truly, truly possible, or, what greatness we have and don't even realize. But for me, yeah, it took getting knocked on my ass to really realize what is out there and what I'm capable of, and the limits, and the benefit of trying new things and getting myself out there.
It's not that you're not impacted by bad luck. Like it hits you still. Like we heard that through your whole story, right? Like it's still like, you're like, oh my God, this is happening and that's happening, this happened. But it's when the rubber hits the road. Oh my God. Literally, when the rubber hits the road. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I wasn't trying to make a pun. But when that happens, then it's time to give it away and just go.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Huh. Well, you ought to bottle that and sell it. Then I think you could buy like 1,000 bikes.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really crazy. Good for you. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
When you wake up from that surgery, you didn't know you were going to be this person. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Never in a million years would I have imagined myself moving out here to the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center to be an elite level athlete.
Yeah.
Never.
Even being able to tell this story from your perspective now is just new.
Yeah.
Hey, can I ask you a question that you may or may not have an answer to? I've been thinking about this a lot lately.
Yeah.
You get diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Somebody does, anybody, right? Somebody's kid, they do, etc. It's clear to me in hindsight, if you're a ship on a course, this is a wind that blows you in a different direction. Then there's some people who say like, well, I want to get back to normal. And there are some people who say, well, this is my new normal. I think I'm of the opinion that once you're blown in a different direction, there's different impactors now, different variables to your life. Like you're never getting back to where you were. I think the truth is that you wouldn't have stayed on that direction anyway. Like other things would have changed in your life. Like life changes constantly. So, but it happens very abruptly with type 1. Like you get, boom, there's a diagnosis, bang, my course has been changed. How do you accept that course? Because I don't think that it's so much that the one course or the other is necessarily better or worse than the other one. It's just this one's different than what I expected. And it happened so quickly that I didn't have time to adjust to it. So if this is all making sense, when your course is abruptly changed, what's the secret to accepting it?
It's a question, especially in the last several months since the Paralympic Games have been over, that I have asked myself a lot. I've had that question a lot of like, what is it truly that is keeping me going and keeping me dealing with all this just straight up bullshit that many would look at this situation as.
Yeah, like what stops you from putting a fork in a socket? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Yep.
It's been a question I've had a lot recently because after the Paralympic Games, my team completely shut down my training and said, we've got to get this GI stuff figured out. Because at the Paralympic Games, I was living off of smoothies and Kate Farms supplemental nutritional drinks and still throwing up constantly and dealing with nausea and stuff. And I'm still dealing with it to this day, and we've been trying to figure it out. I've been absolutely thrown through the ringer as far as diagnostic testing recently. And it has been a very, very big thought of mine of like, God, what does keep me driving? Because, Like I said, they shut down my training. They said no riding the bike until this is figured out, just due to, because I was dealing with autonomic dysreflexia, which is essentially with a spinal cord injury, the body saying, yo, code red, something's wrong. We're going to shoot your blood pressure up super high. And so I was dealing with that and stuff. And they said, we got to get this figured out. You have to take a step back from the bike, which was very hard for me to digest because, like I explained to you earlier, the bike for me, it was very freeing. It's been a huge role in showing me what I am capable of, but also on the physical aspects of it, it was a huge part of my spasticity and pain management. I deal with neuropathic nerve pain due to my spinal cord injury and spasticity due to, signals being sent incorrectly down the spinal canal due to the injury. And it also was a huge role in my diabetes management. So having all that taken away, it was a huge bullet to bite because, one, pain, spasticity, diabetes management all started getting a little worse. And it was very hard for me to eat. And I just, I was like really realizing how much the bike has helped me deal with all this. And yeah.
It's purpose, right? Like the one thing people need, it doesn't matter what the purpose is. People need purpose.
Yeah.
It took me a long time. Like my mom is gone now, right? But my mom worked, as a kind of jobs that she tripped into when she was young. She was a stay-at-home mom for a very long time. Eventually she had to go back to work. She took a retail job. She was basically just at a cash register in a pharmacy. Mm-hmm. But if you asked her about the job was like helping people. It was talking to people. It was having conversations and building communities of people who came in there and being supportive. And like, if you talked to her about her job, she wouldn't have mentioned the exchange of the cash back and forth at the cash register, right? Like that wasn't it. I think if you take my mom at the end of her life and say, hey, you tell me your impact of your work life on the world, she would have spoken about it really lovingly.
Yeah.
About kids that worked there, and she'd help them with stuff, and overwhelmed pharmacists that really, were being asked to do too much. So people would pick up the slack and get people their prescriptions on time and like all this other stuff. But in the end, what my mom had was, and it doesn't matter how you measure it, she had some level of purpose. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I do the same thing. I get up every day and I think, I'm going to go try to help people with type 1 diabetes today. That's a purpose I have, right? I raise my kids. It's a purpose. People buy pets. They take care of them. They feel purposeful. Like, you lose the ability to walk. And I can see how very quickly your sense of purpose would just turn to self-care, and that eventually you'd turn in on yourself and there wouldn't be anything outside of you. And I think that could be difficult for somebody. So the bike to me it's a hill to conquer.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. It's the bike to me has definitely been my purpose. It's been my SCI and my diabetes management. And it was very hard for the few months that I had to completely take off the bike, of just having to sit there and take in the spasticity and really increased nerve pain, and also all this GI stuff going on and not having any outlet. I realized that me riding the bike and me doing wheelchair rugby was my outlet as far as managing all that. Sure. And it was very, very hard. And like I said, we're still to this day searching for answers. I just had a colonoscopy the other day that went absolutely haywire. It's just been this test after test after test as far as trying to figure out what is going on, but just not having any answers. And so it's been hard to digest because, so often I feel like I've felt like I've just been in this big black hole of uncertainty with all this, of like, okay, this is a really big issue as far as me being able to, get in the nutritional support that one needs and stuff, but we just don't have any answers, especially in the sports world. Someone breaks their ankle, okay, here's the surgery, here's how long the recovery is going to be, and this is what coming back to training has looked like. It's pretty concrete as far as what the road to recovery looks like. Mm-hmm. Whereas me, it's just been this big black hole of uncertainty since the infection back in July. And trying to figure out answers, which has been, I think, a big reason why I've struggled so much to, one, step away from the bike, but also just cope with it and accept, like, okay, this sucks. These are my symptoms. Well, what are the answers? How do we move on with this? And if this is my new normal, how do we approach it and how do we deal with it? Because right now it's definitely, I in many ways have felt like my life has just been completely shut down, and it's been super, super hard.
What do doctors say about the gut stuff?
There's kind of wonderance of gastroparesis. We did a gastric emptying study, but they weren't able to do it like they typically want because the majority of the stuff had dairy in it.
Kate, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me make a suggestion. You haven't had type 1 very long, right? So
No.
The idea that you have gastroparesis because of poor diet, like type 1 insulin use or control, it's pretty unreasonable. So do they think it's because of the injury, or has anyone talked to you about the fact that, a lot of type 1s just have digestive problems?
Yeah, so that was something that was looked at. They looked at like the pancreatic and the liver enzymes within blood work and stuff. When I was in the hospital, they did a small bile duct study. They did an endoscopy. And it's just, we're in this big black hole of uncertainty. And I'm actually currently awaiting a call today, hopefully, to figure out what our next steps are. Because I've just gotten to the point of it of like, there's some things in life we may never have a complete answer to. But the one thing that just has not happened for me recently has been, okay, I want to search for answers and I want to figure out what's going on, but I want to address symptom management as well.
Yeah. But wait, what's happening though? Does your stomach just hurt? Are you just not, your meals aren't moving through you as much?
Nausea and vomiting, throwing up meals 6 hours after the fact of eating them as if I just ate it.
Okay. Listen, I want to be very 100% million percent clear. I barely graduated from high school. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not a doctor, but I think you should take a couple of minutes just to look into a simple over-the-counter digestive enzyme.
Yeah.
Which helps a lot of people with type 1.
Yeah. So that has been mentioned, and that is something that I had brought up with GI and is part of the call that I'm awaiting.
Yeah.
But it's just, figuring out the right course to go about it and stuff. Also with all the anti-doping stuff, because I can't just go pick up a bottle of digestive enzymes and just take it.
You have to make sure. Don't want to reopen that can of worms.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you listen to the podcast at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
792. Episode 792 is called Owner of a Useless Pancreas. It's me and Jenny talking about the other things that your pancreas does besides, insulin. And in that conversation, you'll hear me talk about how I, at some point, had to add digestive enzymes to Arden's diet because she was having the same problems you're having, not the throwing up, but a lot of the other stuff, right? Also, I'm not saying you don't have gastroparesis. I'm just saying that these digestive enzymes are over the counter. If you look at I obviously would want you to really, really, really look at the ingredients. There's nothing in them that I can imagine off the top of my head that would be a problem for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a couple of companies that make really good ones. I'm looking at the label right now for one that I'd be completely comfortable telling you is valuable. Amylase, protease, protease 6, glycomylase, lactase, lipase, beta glucanase, invertase, cellulose, alpha galactosidase, protease 3, fetus, and hemocellulose. I don't know what any of that is. Okay. But I do know that I've seen it help a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people. Sometimes they just take them with high fattier meals or protein, like meat. I don't know how you eat even, but if you can go use those without it being a doping issue.
Yeah.
If they work for you, you'll know really quickly.
Yeah.
It's not a thing you got to do for months and go well, I don't know. You know what I mean? In a couple of days, you'll just be oh, this is helping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it kind of gives your gut a chance to maybe heal then at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know, by taking some of the load off of it. I'm using phrasing and words from my experience watching it happen for somebody else. Obviously there's nothing medical about what I'm saying, but I'm telling you, it's a really, really strong possibility that this is the only problem you have. So anyway, I would listen to 792 before that diet. And if it really, catches your attention, you think, okay, let me look more into it. There's 767 where I just talk briefly about everything that Arden takes as a supplement. And honestly, if you go to juiceboxpodcast.com and just search the word digestive, you'll get a lot of episodes where people are talking about it.
Yeah. No, it's something that I have been very familiar with and like aware of.
Good.
And that's definitely kind of the next route that I am kind of going.
I think you need an easy answer once in a while, is what I'm saying.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. No, like I said, it's especially after this colonoscopy, I just have felt so burnt out as far as, going into these tests and just not getting answers and stuff.
Yeah, no, of course. Listen, my daughter, whose A1C has been between 5.2 and 6.2, now maybe she went off to college, so 5.2 and 6.5 for like, I don't even know, like a decade, right?
Yeah.
And she's got, her stomach hurts and, you do all the things I'm sure you've gone through too. And then eventually she ends up at an endoscopy, right? So now they're looking in her stomach, doing a gastric emptying test and everything. And the doctor just comes back to us and says, Arden has gastroparesis.
Yeah.
That doctor might just mean slow gastric emptying.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a thing you say to the parents or a person with type 1 diabetes, because we have a completely different perspective on what that might mean, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like standing there, I'm like, that's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it is. Like, who knows, And if I didn't have Jenny to talk to privately, who was like, listen, Arden does not have gastroparesis. Like, let's look into other stuff. And they gave her this gastroparesis diet, which, Kate, was terrible and didn't help any. Mm-hmm. She did it religiously for a month and it just didn't change a damn thing. And I'm not lying to you. Like, this is exactly what happened. At the end of the month, she goes, I want a cheeseburger. I don't care if my stomach hurts. I'm done with this stupid diet. It's not helping.
Yeah, I remember this.
Right. And she's just like, my stomach's going to hurt. And I guess this is my lot in life. And I was like, all right, I'll get you a cheeseburger, but you have to go to the health food store with me first. Mm-hmm. And we went to the health food store and all I did was took the crunchiest lady in the place who looked like she was in like good shape. And I told her what happened and she gave her a digestive enzyme and she took 2 of them and ate the cheeseburger and she was okay.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, it's definitely something I'm wanting to like explore.
Yeah.
And have brought it to the attention of the GI. Because like the thing is, it's been a very good experience. He has done a very good job being very thorough and stuff on the diagnostic side. But where we're lacking is just the symptom management side. And so now I'm to the point where I'm like, okay, what can we try? And like,
something you can buy on Amazon and have at your house today.
Yeah.
I mean, keep in mind this, and I'm not bad-mouthing anybody, but like the doctor you went to can't make any money if he just gives you a digestive enzyme and says, oh, your belly hurts, try this. He's got to do a test. He's got to stick a tube in your butt. He's got a lot of things he's got to do if he wants to charge you money. So, I mean, what I ended up doing was listening to a lady who in the end, I believe might have been a witch doctor. That's fine. She's just this lovely hippie and, she was just very helpful. Now, she has said stuff to me, too, that I've been like, oh, okay, hocus pocus, thank you.
Yeah.
And I don't listen, but on this one thing, just really worked out, So anyway, I wish you a ton of luck. Is there anything we haven't talked about that we should have? We're getting a little long here.
I don't think so, no.
Awesome.
I think we hit the nail on the head.
I appreciate you doing this again. You're such a good shepherd of your own story, which some people aren't. I like this. I like talking to you because I really genuinely think, and I say this to people once in a while, like I could have said, everybody, this is Kate. She was on the podcast before. I could have gotten a sandwich and come back.
Yeah.
And I would have been like, are we done, Kate? And you would have been like, yep, told my whole story. And I'd be like, oh, awesome. You're just very good at it. So thank you. I appreciate it. No, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Can people check you out online somewhere?
Quad Kate on Instagram.
Nice. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by US Med, usmed.com/juicebox, or call 888-721-1514. US Med is where my daughter gets her diabetes supplies from, and you could too. Use the link or number to get your free benefits check and get started today with US Med. Arden started using a contour meter because of its accuracy, but she continues to use it because it's durable and trustworthy. If you have diabetes, you want the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter. There's already so many decisions. Let me take this one off your plate. contournext.com/juicebox. Are you starting to see patterns, but you can't quite make sense of them? You're like, oh, if I bolus here, this happens, but I don't know what to do. Should I put in a little less, a little more? If you're starting to have those thoughts, if you're starting to think, this isn't going the way the doctor said it would, I think I see something here, but I can't be sure. Once you're having those thoughts, you're ready for the Diabetes Pro Tip series from the Juicebox Podcast. It begins at episode 1000. You can also find it at juiceboxpodcast.com up in the menu. And you can find a list in the private Facebook group. Just check right under the featured tab at the top. It'll show you lists of a ton of stuff, including the Pro Tip series, which runs from episode 1000 to 1025. If you're not already subscribed or following in your favorite audio app, please take the time now to do that. It really helps the show. And get those automatic downloads set up so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. WrongWayRecording.com.